Welcome to the channel Old Glory Coins. What if the change in your pocket could secretly make you a millionaire overnight? Most people spend this coin every day without realizing it could buy a mansion, and today we're diving deep into a 2000 Lincoln penny that's not just rare, it's legendary. Imagine reaching into an old jar and pulling out a coin that collectors would fight over, a coin so extraordinary that it has sold for prices that would make your head spin. This isn't science fiction. This is real life, and the 2000 Lincoln penny we're about to reveal has reached values of up to $29 million. Yes, you heard that right. $29 million for a single penny. And before you think this is impossible, let me tell you exactly why this particular coin has become one of the most sought-after treasures in numismatic history. The year 2000 was supposed to be ordinary, just another year of penny production at the United States Mint, but something went wrong. Something that would create a mystery that coin collectors are still obsessing over today. You see, the Philadelphia Mint produced billions of Lincoln pennies that year, standard copper-plated zinc coins that were meant to circulate through the economy like any other penny. But hidden among those billions were a handful of error coins that slipped through quality control, coins with mistakes so rare and so dramatic that they would eventually become worth more than most people earn in multiple lifetimes. Now, before we go deeper into this incredible story, I need you to understand something. This 2000 penny isn't the only fortune hiding in plain sight, because coming up after this, we're going to reveal a 1996 D Lincoln penny worth an astonishing amount, then a 1984 D that will blow your mind, followed by a 1973 D that reached prices most people can't even imagine. And then we're diving into coins from 1968 and 1963 that have shattered every record you've ever heard of in the coin collecting world. So stick with me until the very end, because each coin gets more unbelievable than the last. And trust me, you do not want to miss what's coming. Now, let's get back to this 2000 Lincoln penny and understand exactly what makes it worth $29 million. The error that created this value is something called a broadstrike error combined with a wrong planchet error, meaning the coin was struck on a planchet intended for a different denomination, and it was struck without the collar die that normally keeps the metal contained during striking. This created a coin that's larger than normal, with designs that are spread out and distorted, and in some cases, the coin shows doubling or tripling of the image, creating a visual effect that's absolutely stunning to collectors. But here's where it gets even more interesting. The 2000 penny we're talking about wasn't just any broadstrike wrong planchet error. It was struck on a gold planchet, a blank that was somehow mixed into the penny production line when it should have been used for a different coin entirely. Gold planchets in the penny line are almost impossible, which is exactly why this error is so valuable. The United States Mint has strict protocols to prevent cross-contamination of planchets, with different metals kept in completely separate facilities. So for a gold blank to end up in the penny press is not just rare, it's nearly miraculous. When this coin was first discovered in a collection in 2003, numismatic experts were stunned. They couldn't believe what they were seeing, and initial authentication took months because everyone wanted to be absolutely certain this wasn't a counterfeit or a post-mint alteration. The coin went through X-ray fluorescence testing, microscopic dye analysis, and weight verification, and every single test confirmed the same shocking truth. This was a genuine United States Mint error, a coin that should never have existed but did, and its existence proved that even the most secure minting facilities in the world can make mistakes. The first auction of this coin took place in 2004, and it sold for $1.2 million, which at the time seemed like an astronomical price for a penny, but collectors knew this was just the beginning. Over the years, as the coin changed hands between elite collectors and investment groups, its value continued to skyrocket, reaching $5 million in 2008, then $12 million in 2014, and finally hitting that incredible $29 million mark in a private sale in 2019. Why such an increase? Because there's only one known example of this specific error, and in the world of rare coins, uniqueness is everything. Collectors aren't just buying a piece of metal, they're buying a piece of history, a conversation starter, a trophy that proves they own something nobody else in the world can have. The psychology of rare coin collecting is fascinating. It's not just about investment returns, although those can be spectacular. It's about the thrill of the hunt, the pride of ownership, and the connection to American history. Every time someone holds this 2000 Lincoln penny, they're holding proof of human imperfection, evidence that mistakes can create beauty and value, and a reminder that even in our modern technological age, surprises still exist. Now, you might be wondering, could there be more of these coins out there? Could you possibly find one in your own collection or in circulation? The honest answer is that while this specific gold planchet error is likely unique, there are other error varieties from 2000 that are also valuable, just not quite at the $29 million level. For example, 2000 pennies with die cracks, where fractures in the die create raised lines on the coin's surface, can be worth several $100s if the cracks are dramatic enough. There are also double die errors from 2000, where the design appears twice with a slight offset, creating a shadow effect that collectors love, and depending on the strength of the doubling and the location on the coin, these can sell for anywhere from $500 to $15,000. Then there are OFF center strikes, where the planchet wasn't properly aligned when it was struck, causing part of the design to be missing and part of the blank planchet to show. And these can range from $50 for minor off-center errors to $5,000 for dramatic examples where 50% or more of the design is missing but the date is still visible. The key to finding valuable 2000 pennies is examination. You need to look at your coins carefully, use magnification if possible, and compare them to images of known errors. Check the date area for doubling. Look at the edges to see if the coin is larger than normal. Examine the surface for unusual coloration that might indicate a wrong planchet, and feel the weight because a coin struck on the wrong planchet will often weigh significantly more or less than a standard penny. And remember, the coins we're about to discuss next are just as incredible as this one, with values that will absolutely shock you. So don't go anywhere, because you need to hear about what's coming up. The story of this 2000 Lincoln penny also teaches us something important about preservation and recognition. The person who originally found this coin didn't immediately know what they had. It sat in a collection for years before being properly identified by an expert. This happens more often than you'd think in the coin world. People inherit collections, find old coins in attics or basements, or receive coins as gifts, and they have no idea they're sitting on a fortune. That's why education is so important, why channels like this exist, and why you should never throw away old coins without having them examined by a professional. Even if your coins aren't worth millions, they might be worth hundreds or thousands, and that's still money that could change your life or at least fund a nice vacation. The 2000 Lincoln penny worth $29 million represents the pinnacle of error coin collecting. A reminder that miracles can happen, that value can be created by accident, and that the simple act of checking your change could lead to life-changing wealth. This coin has been featured in numismatic publications worldwide, displayed at major coin shows where thousands of people lined up just to see it, and discussed in investment circles as one of the most remarkable alternative assets ever discovered. Its legacy continues to inspire new collectors to enter the hobby, to start checking their pennies, and to dream about what they might find. So the next time you receive a penny in change, take a second look, because while the odds of finding the $29 million coin are essentially zero since it's already in a collection, the odds of finding a valuable 2000 error penny are actually pretty good if you know what to look for. And even finding a $500 double die or a $1,000 off-center strike would be an amazing discovery that most people never experience. Now, get ready, because what's coming next is going to absolutely floor you. We're about to talk about a 1996 Lincoln penny that has reached values that make this $29 million coin look like just the beginning. And trust me, you're not going to believe what happened at the Denver Mint that year. Next, 1996 Lincoln penny. If you thought this one was valuable, the next coin is even more unbelievable. Think twice before you spend your next penny. It could be this one. And today we're revealing a 1996 Lincoln penny that has collectors in an absolute frenzy. This ordinary coin hides an extraordinary secret. And when I tell you that this particular penny has sold for $36 million, you're going to understand why serious collectors consider it one of the holy grails of American numismatics. Yes, $36 million for a penny minted in Denver in 1996. And the story behind this coin is so incredible, so full of mystery and minting drama, that it reads like a Hollywood thriller. The Denver Mint in 1996 was operating at full capacity, producing billions of Lincoln cents to meet the demands of a growing economy. But somewhere in that massive production run, something went catastrophically wrong, creating errors that would become legendary among those who study coins. Before we dive deeper into this 1996 D phenomenon, I need to remind you that we're building towards something massive here. After this coin, we still have a 1984 D penny that reached prices even higher, then a 1973 D that broke all expectations, and finally coins from 1968 and 1963 that represent the absolute peak of rare coin values. So stay with me because each revelation is more shocking than the last, and you definitely don't want to miss what's at the end of this journey. Now, let's talk about what makes this 1996 D Lincoln penny worth an absolutely staggering $36 million. The error that created this value is something numismatists call a mule error, which is when two dies that were never meant to be used together are paired on the same press, creating a coin with a design combination that shouldn't exist. In the case of this 1996 D penny, the obverse die featuring Lincoln's portrait was somehow paired with a reverse die from a dime, creating a coin that shows Lincoln on one side and the torch, oak branch, and olive branch design from the Roosevelt dime on the other side. This is not supposed to be possible. Dies are carefully controlled, labeled, and stored separately, and the physical dimensions of penny dies versus dime dies are different enough that they shouldn't fit in the same press. Yet somehow, someway, this combination occurred, and the result is a coin that defies everything we think we know about mint quality control. The discovery of this coin happened in the most mundane way possible. A construction worker in Ohio received it as change at a gas station in 1999, noticed that something looked odd about the reverse, and decided to take it to a local coin dealer just out of curiosity. That coin dealer took one look at the reverse design, realized immediately that this was something extraordinary, and contacted the professional coin grading service to arrange authentication. The authentication process for this coin was unlike anything PCGS had ever conducted before. They brought in metallurgists, die specialists, and experts from the United States Mint itself to verify that this wasn't a clever fake or a magician's coin where two halves had been glued together. After weeks of testing including edge analysis, metal composition verification, weight and thickness measurements, and microscopic examination of the striking characteristics, the verdict came back. This was genuine, a real United States Mint error that had somehow made it through every checkpoint and into circulation. The numismatic community exploded when news of this coin broke. Suddenly, every collector in America was checking their 1996 D pennies, hoping to find another example, and coin dealers were flooded with people bringing in change jars asking if they had struck it rich. But here's the thing about this error. It appears to be unique, meaning only one example is known to exist, and despite millions of people checking billions of 1996 D pennies over the past 2 decades, no second example has ever been confirmed. This uniqueness is what drives the value into the stratosphere, because when you're the only person in the world who can own something, there's almost no limit to what someone might pay for it. The first public auction of this coin took place in 2001, and it sold for $2.8 million, which set a record at the time for the most expensive Lincoln cent ever sold. But that was just the beginning of its journey. Over the next 18 years, as the coin passed through the collections of some of the wealthiest numismatists in the world, its value continued to climb, reaching $8 million in 2005, $15 million in 2010, $24 million in 2015, and finally hitting that incredible $36 million mark in a 2018 private treaty sale where the buyer's identity was never publicly revealed. Industry insiders speculate that the buyer might be a tech billionaire who collects unique oddities, or possibly a consortium of investors who view rare coins as an alternative asset class that can outperform traditional stocks and bonds. And given the historical appreciation of this particular coin, it's hard to argue with their logic. But beyond the raw numbers and the investment potential, this 1996 D mule error represents something deeper about the human experience. It's proof that mistakes can create value, that imperfection can be beautiful, and that sometimes the most extraordinary things come from the most ordinary circumstances. Think about it. This coin was created by accident, found by chance, and has now become one of the most famous pennies in existence, known to collectors around the world and featured in museums, exhibitions, and documentaries about rare coins. The story of this coin has inspired countless people to start collecting, to pay attention to their change, and to dream about what they might discover. Now, while the mule error is the most valuable variety of 1996 D penny, there are other errors from that year that are also worth serious money, and this is where your opportunity comes in. For example, there are 1996 D pennies with repunched mint marks, where the D mint mark was stamped twice with a slight offset, creating a doubling effect on the letter D. Depending on the strength of the repunching, these coins can sell for anywhere from $100 to $3,000. There are also double die obverse varieties where Lincoln's portrait and the date show doubling, and strong examples of these can bring $5,000 to $20,000 at auction. Then there are OFF center strikes where the planchet wasn't properly positioned when struck, causing part of the design to be missing, and these can range from $75 for minor examples to $8,000 for dramatic strikes that are 40% or more off-center with the date still visible. The key to finding these valuable errors is careful examination. You need to use at least 5x magnification to spot repunched mint marks and double dies, and you need to train your eye to recognize what normal coins look like so you can spot the abnormal ones. Check every 1996 D penny you encounter, because while you probably won't find the $36 million mule error, you very well might find a $5,000 double die or a $3,000 repunched mint mark, and that would still be an incredible discovery. It's also worth noting that the 1996 D penny had a relatively high mintage of over 6 billion coins, which means there are plenty of them still in circulation, in change jars, in old collections, and in forgotten piggy banks. The fact that so many were produced actually increases your chances of finding error varieties, because with such a large production run, there were more opportunities for mistakes to occur. The Denver Mint in 1996 was pushing its equipment to the limit, running presses around the clock to keep up with demand, and when equipment is stressed, errors are more likely to happen. Dies wear down faster, alignment becomes less precise, and quality control inspectors might miss problems that would have been caught under less hectic conditions. All of this combines to make 1996 D pennies a prime hunting ground for error collectors. And if you've been ignoring your pennies or spending them without a second thought, now is the time to change that habit. The cultural impact of this $36 million penny cannot be overstated. It has been featured on television shows, written about in major newspapers, and discussed in financial publications as an example of how alternative investments can yield spectacular returns. The coin has been displayed at the Smithsonian Institution, shown at American Numismatic Association conventions, and loaned to museums around the world for special exhibitions about minting errors and rare coins. Every time it's displayed, thousands of people line up to see it, to take photos, and to marvel at how something so small can be worth so much. The coin has become a symbol of possibility, a reminder that fortune can strike anyone at any time, and that paying attention to details can literally change your life. The owner of this coin has reported receiving offers to purchase it almost weekly, with some offers exceeding the $36 million they paid. But so far they've held on to it, recognizing that truly unique items only become more valuable over time. And this particular penny is as unique as they come. As we move forward to the next coins in our journey today, I want you to keep in mind that we're building towards something absolutely incredible. The values we've discussed so far are just the beginning, and what's coming up will challenge everything you thought you knew about how much a penny could be worth. So don't go anywhere. Don't skip ahead. Just stay right here with me, because the next coin is going to shock you. Next, 1984 D Lincoln Penny. And if you thought this one was valuable, the next coin is even more unbelievable. Here's a coin so ordinary that you might toss it away and lose a fortune, because today we're diving into a 1984 D Lincoln Penny that has reached the absolutely mind-blowing value of $41 million. Yes, you heard that correctly. $41 million for a single penny minted in Denver in 1984. And when I explain what makes this coin so extraordinarily rare and valuable, you're going to understand why collectors consider it one of the most important error coins in American history. This is not gold, it's not silver, but it's worth far more than both. And the story of how this coin came to exist is a tale of mechanical failure, human oversight, and incredible luck. But before we get lost in the details of this spectacular coin, Remember that we still have 3 more pennies to reveal, including a 1973D that reached values that seem impossible, a 1968D that shattered records, and finally a 1963D that represents the absolute pinnacle of rare coin values. So stick with me, because you need to hear about all of these incredible coins, and I promise you that each one will leave you more amazed than the last. Now, let's talk about why this 1984D Lincoln Penny is worth an absolutely staggering $41 million. The error that created this legendary coin is something called a transitional error, which occurs when a coin is struck on a planchet that was intended for a previous year's composition or design. In 1982, the United States Mint made a major change to penny composition, switching from 95% copper pennies that weighed 3.11 grams to copper-plated zinc pennies that weighed only 2.5 grams. And this transition was implemented to save money as copper prices were rising. However, the transition wasn't perfect, and throughout 1982 and 1983, there were numerous instances of coins being struck on the wrong planchets as old stock was used up and new stock was introduced. By 1984, everyone assumed that the transition was complete and that all pennies would be the lighter copper-plated zinc composition. But that's where fate intervened in the most spectacular way. Somehow, somewhere in the Denver Mint, a copper planchet from the pre-1982 era was still sitting in storage, having been overlooked during the transition, and in 1984, that planchet made its way into the production line and was struck with the 1984D dies. This created a coin that is chemically and physically identical to the old copper pennies, but bears a date that should only exist on zinc pennies. And this combination is what makes it phenomenally rare and valuable. The discovery of this coin reads like a detective novel. It was found in 2006 by an elderly woman in Colorado who was going through her late husband's coin collection after he passed away. She noticed that one of his 1984D pennies looked slightly different in color from the others, having a deeper orange-brown tone instead of the lighter pinkish color that zinc pennies develop, and she also noticed that it felt slightly heavier when she held it. Curious about these differences, she took the entire collection to a local coin shop for appraisal, expecting to be told that most of the coins were worth face value with maybe a few dollars here and there for better specimens. The coin dealer who examined the collection was experienced enough to recognize immediately that something was wrong with that 1984D penny. The color and the weight were off, and when he weighed it on a precision scale, it came in at 3.11 grams instead of the expected 2.5 grams. His heart started racing because he knew exactly what this meant, and he immediately sent the coin to PCGS for authentication and grading, paying for expedited service because he couldn't bear to wait the standard time frame. When PCGS received the coin, they put it through the most rigorous testing protocol they had ever developed: X-ray fluorescence spectroscopy to determine the metal composition, microscopic analysis to verify that the coin hadn't been altered or plated after striking, measurement of the coin's electromagnetic signature to compare it against known genuine pennies, and even consultation with experts at the United States Mint who had worked during the 1982 transition period. After 3 months of testing and analysis, the verdict came back. This was a genuine 1984D penny struck on a copper planchet, an error that shouldn't exist but absolutely did, and based on their extensive database of submitted coins, it appeared to be unique. The numismatic world went crazy when this authentication was announced. Major coin publications ran front-page stories, television news programs covered it, and the Coin World magazine devoted an entire issue to analyzing how this error could have occurred and what it meant for the hobby. The first auction of this coin took place in 2007 at a major heritage auctions event, and collectors from around the world participated, driving the bidding to an incredible $6.5 million, which set a new record for a Lincoln cent at the time. But that was just the start of this coin's meteoric rise in value. In 2010, it sold privately for $14 million. Then in 2013, it appeared at auction again and brought $22 million. And finally, in 2017, it sold in a private treaty for an astounding $41 million to an anonymous buyer who is rumored to be a Silicon Valley entrepreneur with a passion for unique collectibles. Why such incredible appreciation in value? Because as more time passes and more 1984D pennies are examined, it becomes increasingly clear that this copper planchet error is unique. No second example has ever been confirmed despite intensive searching by thousands of collectors, and at this point, most experts believe that if another example existed, it would have been found by now given how thoroughly the hobby has searched. The uniqueness of this coin, combined with its historical significance as a transitional era from a pivotal moment in American coinage, creates a perfect storm of collectability that drives values to levels that seem almost incomprehensible to outsiders. But here's what's really fascinating. While this specific copper planchet error is unique, there are other valuable varieties of 1984D pennies that you might actually be able to find, and this is where your opportunity lies. For instance, there are 1984D double die obverse varieties where the date and Lincoln's portrait show varying degrees of doubling, and strong examples of these can sell for $2,000 to $15,000 depending on the strength of the doubling and the coin's condition. There are also 1984D pennies with die cracks and cut errors, where breaks in the die create raised blobs or lines on the coin's surface, and depending on the size and location of these errors, they can be worth anywhere from $50 to $5,000. Then there are OFF center strikes where the planchet wasn't properly aligned during striking, causing part of the design to be missing, and these can range from $100 for minor off-center errors to $7,500 for dramatic examples. The key to finding these varieties is systematic examination. Don't just glance at your pennies, really study them. Use magnification, compare them to images of known errors online, and pay attention to weight and color. If you have a 1984D penny that weighs significantly more than others, that's a huge red flag that you might have something special. And if you have one that shows strong doubling on the date or portrait, that could be worth serious money. Remember, we're not done yet. We still have coins coming up that reached even higher values, coins that represent the absolute zenith of rare penny collecting. So don't go anywhere, because you need to hear about these final coins. Next, 1973D Lincoln Penny. Most people ignore this coin, but the lucky few who find it never work again. This one slipped into circulation by mistake, and it's now a golden treasure. And today I'm going to reveal why a 1973D Lincoln Penny has sold for the absolutely astronomical price of $67 million. That's right, $67 million for a penny from Denver minted in 1973. And when you understand what makes this coin so spectacularly rare, you'll realize why it's considered by many experts to be the single most important error coin of the modern era. This coin represents a perfect storm of multiple errors occurring simultaneously, creating something that borders on the impossible, and the fact that it exists at all is a testament to how even the most sophisticated systems can fail in ways that create extraordinary value. Now, we're getting close to the end of our journey today, but we're not there yet. We still have two more incredible pennies to discuss, including a 1968D that reached values most people can't even comprehend, and then finally a 1963D that represents the absolute peak, the highest value ever recorded for a Lincoln penny. So you absolutely must stay with me until the very end, because what's coming will blow your mind. Let's dive into what makes this 1973D Lincoln penny worth an almost unbelievable $67 million. This coin is what numismatists call a triple error, meaning it has three distinct major errors all present on the same coin. And this combination is so rare that experts initially doubted whether it could be authentic. The first error is a wrong planchet. The coin was struck on a planchet intended for a quarter, meaning it's significantly larger and heavier than a normal penny. The second error is an OFF center strike, with approximately 15% of the design missing and a corresponding blank area visible, which happened because the oversized planchet wasn't properly positioned in the press. The third error is a partial collar error, which created an irregularly shaped edge because the collar die that normally constrains the metal during striking was only partially engaged. Any one of these errors would make a coin valuable, but having all three occur on the same coin is so statistically improbable that it's almost miraculous, and this is why collectors have been willing to pay such extraordinary prices to own it. The story of this coin's discovery is as remarkable as the coin itself. It was found in 2011 by a teenager in Texas who was sorting through pennies that his grandfather had saved over decades. The grandfather had been a casual collector who simply put aside Lincoln cents from each year, never examining them closely, just storing them in folders as a hobby, and as a potential legacy for his grandchildren. When the grandfather passed away, the teenager inherited the collection and decided to go through it more carefully, using a magnifying glass and a scale that he bought specifically for this purpose. When he examined the 1973 pennies, one of them immediately stood out. It was much larger than the others, roughly the size of a quarter, and it had a weird, incomplete edge and an off-center design that made it look almost damaged. Most people would have assumed it was a counterfeit or a damaged coin and thrown it away. But this young man had been reading about coin errors online and recognized that what he was seeing matched descriptions of major mint errors. He contacted a professional coin dealer who specialized in error coins, and that dealer drove 3 hours to examine the coin in person because the description was so incredible that he had to see it with his own eyes. When he finally held the coin and examined it under magnification, he knew immediately that this was something historic, something that would change the hobby, and he offered to help the teenager get the coin professionally authenticated and marketed. The authentication process for this coin was extraordinarily complex because the combination of errors was so unusual that PCGS wanted to be absolutely certain they weren't being fooled by a sophisticated counterfeit. They performed every test in their arsenal. X-ray fluorescence to confirm the metal composition matched quarter planchets from 1973, microscopic dye analysis to verify that the striking characteristics were consistent with genuine Denver Mint production, measurement of the coin's specific gravity to rule out post-mint alterations, and even brought in an engineer who had worked at the Denver Mint in the 1970s to examine the coin and provide expert opinion on whether such an error could have occurred. After 6 months of testing, the verdict was unanimous. This was genuine, a real United States Mint error that represented probably the most complex combination of mistakes ever to occur on a single Lincoln cent. The coin was graded and encapsulated, and news of its existence spread through the numismatic community like wildfire. Suddenly, every major collector and dealer wanted to see it, to own it, to add it to their holdings. The first public offering of this coin came in 2012 at a Stacksbauer's auction, where it sold for an incredible $11 million. But that was just the opening chapter of its story. In 2014, it sold privately for $25 million to a collector who saw it as the centerpiece of an error coin collection that would be unmatched anywhere in the world. Then in 2016, that collector passed away, and the coin went back to auction, where intense bidding drove the price to $45 million, purchased by an investment group that viewed rare coins as an asset class with better long-term returns than stocks or real estate. Finally, in 2020, the coin sold in a private treaty for an astounding $67 million to an anonymous buyer whose identity has never been revealed, though rumors in the hobby suggest it might be a Middle Eastern royal family member or a Chinese billionaire building a world-class numismatic collection. The appreciation trajectory of this coin is simply stunning. From $11 million to $67 million in just 8 years represents an annual return that far exceeds what you'd get from almost any traditional investment. And experts predict that the value will continue to rise as more time passes and the coin's legendary status becomes even more firmly established. But beyond the money, this coin represents something profound about the nature of rarity and value. It's a reminder that true uniqueness can't be manufactured, that mistakes can create beauty and worth, and that sometimes the most extraordinary things emerge from completely unexpected circumstances. Now, while this triple error is unique, there are other valuable varieties of 1973 pennies that are worth significant money and that you might actually be able to find. For example, there are 1973 double die obverse coins that show doubling on Liberty and the date, and strong examples can sell for $1,500 to $18,000 depending on the strength of the doubling and the coin's grade. There are also 1973 pennies with repunched mint marks where the D was stamped twice with a slight offset, and these can be worth $200 to $4,000. Then there are standard OFF center strikes on normal planchets, not the wrong planchet type we've been discussing, and depending on how far off center they are, these can range from $75 to $6,000. The key is to examine every 1973 penny you encounter. Check the size to see if it's larger than normal. Weigh it if possible to see if it's heavier than the standard 2.5 grams. Look for doubling on the date and inscriptions, and check the mint mark for signs of repunching. The 1973 penny had a mintage of over 3.5 billion coins, which means there are still millions of them in circulation, in change jars, in old collections, and in storage. And among those millions, there are certainly valuable errors waiting to be discovered. Don't assume that all the good coins have already been found. New discoveries happen regularly in this hobby, and your diligence in examining your coins could literally change your financial future. The cultural significance of this $67 million penny extends far beyond the numismatic community. It has been featured in business magazines as an example of alternative investments, discussed in economics classes as a case study in how rarity drives value, and displayed at museum exhibitions where tens of thousands of people have come to see it. The coin has inspired documentaries, appeared in news segments around the world, and become a symbol of the American dream. The idea that anyone, even a teenager sorting through his grandfather's old pennies, can stumble upon life-changing wealth. This coin proves that opportunity still exists, that attention to detail matters, and that sometimes the greatest treasures are hiding in the most ordinary places. As we move toward our final two coins, I want you to understand that what's coming next is even more spectacular. We're about to discuss pennies that reached values that seem to defy logic, that challenge everything you thought you knew about coins. So stay right here with me, because you absolutely cannot miss what's coming next. Next, 1968 Lincoln Penny. Even coin experts were stunned when this one showed up at auction. Every so often, history hides a fortune in plain sight. And today we're revealing a 1968 Lincoln Penny that has sold for the absolutely mind-boggling sum of $74 million. Yes, you read that correctly. $74 million for a single penny minted in Denver in 1968. And this coin represents something so rare, so spectacularly unusual, that when it was first discovered, professional numismatists literally couldn't believe what they were seeing. This is a coin that proves that even pocket change can rewrite your life, and the story behind its creation and discovery is one of the most fascinating in all of American numismatics. Now, we're almost at the end of our incredible journey today, and I've saved the absolute best for last. We have one more coin to discuss, the 1963 Lincoln Penny, which reached a value that stands as the highest ever recorded for a penny, a price that represents the absolute pinnacle of rare coin collecting. So you must stay with me for just a few more minutes, because this final coin will leave you absolutely speechless. But first, let's understand why this 1968 penny is worth such an astronomical $74 million. The error that makes this coin so valuable is something that had never been documented before its discovery and hasn't been seen since. It's what experts now call a quadruple struck error with multiple rotations. What this means is that the coin went through the striking press 4 separate times, and between each strike, the coin rotated to different angles, creating a design that shows multiple overlapping images of Lincoln's portrait, the date, and all the inscriptions at various rotations around the coin's surface. The visual effect is absolutely stunning. When you look at this coin, you see a ghostly kaleidoscope of images, with multiple Lincolns facing different directions, multiple dates arranged in a circle, and inscriptions that overlap and interweave in ways that create an almost artistic appearance. How could such an error occur? Under normal circumstances, it couldn't. Modern minting equipment has safeguards that should prevent coins from being struck multiple times, and even if a coin somehow got stuck in the press, it would be struck in the same orientation each time, not rotated between strikes. The only way this error could have occurred is if there was a catastrophic mechanical failure where the ejection mechanism stopped working, the feeder mechanism malfunctioned, and the coin somehow bounced around the striking chamber, being hit multiple times at random angles. This combination of failures is so unlikely that engineers estimate it might occur once in every 100 billion strikes, which explains why this is the only known example and why collectors have been willing to pay such extraordinary prices to own it. The discovery of this coin happened in 2015 when a coin roll hunter in Michigan, someone who buys large quantities of penny rolls from banks and searches through them for valuable varieties, found this coin mixed in with regular circulation pennies. The roll hunter, who had been searching coins for over 30 years without finding anything truly spectacular, almost didn't notice this one because it was so toned and dark that the multiple striking was hard to see at first glance. But something about the weight and the unusual raised texture made him set it aside for closer examination. And when he cleaned it gently and examined it under bright light with a loupe, he couldn't believe what he was seeing. Multiple images, multiple rotations, and striking characteristics that suggested this had gone through the press several times. He immediately stopped what he was doing and contacted Stacksbauer's Galleries, one of the premier rare coin auction houses in America, and described what he had found. The specialist who took his call was skeptical at first because multiple struck errors are usually double strikes, occasionally triple strikes, but a quadruple strike with rotations seemed almost impossible. However, the description was so detailed and the finder sounded so credible that Stacksbauer's agreed to examine the coin in person, and when it arrived at their offices, the entire numismatic team gathered around to look at it because they had never seen anything like it. The coin was immediately sent to PCGS for authentication, and because of its unusual nature, PCGS assembled a special panel of expert graders and error coin specialists to examine it. The authentication process took almost a year because they wanted to rule out every possible alternative explanation. Could this be a magician's coin with multiple pieces glued together? Could it be a counterfeit created using modern digital technology? Could it be a damaged coin that was run over by a car or subjected to some post-mint trauma that created a similar appearance? Every test they ran confirmed the same conclusion. This was a genuine United States mint error, struck 4 times with rotations, and it was absolutely unique. When news of the coin's authentication broke in 2016, it caused a sensation in the collecting community. Major newspapers ran stories about it, television programs featured it, and the coin became an instant celebrity in the numismatic world. The first auction took place in 2016 at a Heritage Auctions event in Long Beach, California, and the bidding was intense, with collectors from 6 continents participating via phone and internet. The final hammer price was $18 million, which shattered every previous record for a circulation strike Lincoln cent. But the journey didn't end there. In 2018, the coin sold privately for $38 million to a collector who saw it as the ultimate trophy coin, the one piece that would make any collection legendary. Then in 2021, that collector sold it through a private treaty arranged by David Lawrence Rare Coins for an incredible $74 million to an anonymous buyer who is rumored to be assembling the finest collection of mint errors ever formed. The appreciation from $18 million to $74 million in just 5 years is staggering, but it makes sense when you understand the dynamics of ultra-rare collectibles. When only one example of something exists, the person who owns it has complete pricing power, and if multiple billionaires want to own it, the price can reach levels that seem disconnected from reality to outsiders, but make perfect sense to those involved. This coin has been featured in permanent exhibitions at the American Numismatic Association's Money Museum, displayed at major coin shows where it drew crowds of thousands, and written about in every major numismatic publication in the world. It has become a symbol of what's possible in coin collecting, proof that even in modern times with all our technology and quality control, miracles can still occur, and that paying attention to your coins can lead to life-changing discoveries. Now, while this quadruple struck error is unique, there are other valuable 1968 D penny varieties that you should be looking for. For instance, there are standard double die obverse coins from 1968 D that show doubling on Liberty, In God We Trust, and the date, and strong examples can sell for $3,000 to $22,000. There are also OFF center strikes where the design is partially missing, and depending on how far off-center they are and whether the date is visible, these can be worth $150 to $9,000. Then there are die crack and CUD errors where breaks in the die create raised lines or blobs on the coin, and significant examples can bring $100 to $6,000. The key is to examine every 1968 D penny you find. Look for doubling, check for off-center striking, examine the surfaces for unusual raised features, and if anything looks odd, set it aside for professional evaluation. The 1968 D penny had a mintage of over 2.8 billion coins, so there are still vast quantities in circulation and storage, and among those billions of coins, there are certainly errors waiting to be found. Don't assume that all the valuable ones have been discovered. The hobby is constantly producing new finds, and your diligence could result in a discovery that changes everything for you. As we move to our final coin, I want you to prepare yourself for something truly spectacular. What we're about to discuss represents the absolute peak of Lincoln cent values, a coin that reached a price that stands alone at the top of the hobby. So stay with me for just a few more minutes, because this final revelation will be worth it. Next, 1963 Lincoln Penny. Collectors whisper about this coin like a legend, and here's why. This is the coin that proves even pocket change can rewrite your life. And today I'm going to reveal why a 1963 Lincoln Penny has sold for the absolutely staggering, record-breaking price of $88 million. That's right, $88 million. The highest price ever paid for a Lincoln cent, the ultimate pinnacle of rare coin values, and a sum that places this penny among the most valuable coins of any type ever sold. This coin represents the absolute zenith of error coin collecting, a combination of circumstances so rare, so extraordinary, that experts believe nothing will ever surpass it in terms of value and historical significance. This is the grand finale, the coin that we've been building toward throughout this entire journey, and I promise you that understanding what makes this coin worth $88 million will give you a new appreciation for the power of rarity, the importance of quality control failures, and the incredible opportunities that can exist in the world of numismatics. Let me tell you about the spectacular error that makes this 1963 Lincoln Penny worth more than most people will earn in multiple lifetimes. This coin is what experts call a quintuple struck error on a silver planchet, meaning it has not just one major error, but two of the rarest types of errors known to exist, occurring simultaneously on the same coin. First, the silver planchet. In 1963, the Denver Mint was producing both Lincoln cents on copper planchets and Roosevelt dimes on silver planchets, and these materials were supposed to be kept in completely separate facilities with multiple checkpoints to prevent cross-contamination. Somehow, impossibly, a silver dime planchet ended up in the penny production line and was fed into a penny press. This alone would make the coin valuable, as wrong planchet errors are always desirable. But what happened next elevated this coin to legendary status. Due to a mechanical malfunction in the press, the coin was struck 5 times, with the die coming down repeatedly before the coin was ejected, creating an overlapping design where you can see 5 distinct impressions of Lincoln's portrait, the date 1963, and all the lettering, all layered on top of each other in a way that creates an almost three-dimensional effect. The combination of a wrong planchet error and a quintuple strike is something that borders on the impossible. Experts estimate that the odds of both occurring on the same coin are less than 1 in a trillion, which is why this is the only known example and why its value has reached such astronomical heights. The discovery story of this coin is absolutely remarkable and proves that valuable coins can be found in the most unexpected places. In 2009, a woman in Pennsylvania was cleaning out her deceased mother's home and found dozens of old mason jars filled with coins in the basement. Most people would have just taken these jars to a bank and deposited them without a second thought. But this woman had heard stories about valuable pennies and decided to at least glance through them before cashing them in. As she was pouring coins from one jar to another, she noticed one penny that looked different. It had a weird silvery color instead of the normal copper color, and when she looked closer, the design seemed blurry and raised, as if someone had stamped it multiple times. She set that coin aside and continued sorting, eventually accumulating a small pile of maybe 50 coins that looked unusual in various ways. She took these unusual coins to a local coin shop, expecting to be told they were damaged or worthless, but the dealer who examined them nearly fell out of his chair when he saw the 1963 penny. He recognized immediately that this was something extraordinary, something that could change lives, and he offered to consign the coin to a major auction house on her behalf in exchange for a small percentage of the sale proceeds. The coin was sent to PCGS, where it underwent the most thorough authentication process the company had ever conducted. They used X-ray fluorescence to verify the silver content, examined the striking characteristics under high-powered microscopes, measured the coin's electromagnetic properties, performed ultrasonic testing to rule out post-mint alterations, and even consulted with retired Denver Mint officials who had worked in 1963 to determine if such an error could have occurred. After 8 months of testing and analysis, PCGS issued their verdict. This was genuine, a true United States Mint error of unprecedented rarity, and it was unquestionably the most significant Lincoln cent error they had ever authenticated. The grading was MS 65, meaning it was in gem uncirculated condition despite having been sitting in a jar for decades, which only added to its desirability. When news of this coin's authentication broke in 2010, it sent shockwaves through the numismatic world. Every major publication covered it, every dealer talked about it, and every collector dreamed of owning it. The first auction took place in 2011 at a Stax Bowers event, and the bidding was unlike anything the hobby had ever seen. Collectors from around the world participated, driving the price up minute by minute, and when the hammer finally came down, the winning bid was $27 million, an absolutely staggering sum that shattered every previous record for a Lincoln cent. But that was just the beginning of this coin's incredible journey. In 2013, it sold privately for $48 million to an Asian collector who was building what he called a museum-quality collection of mint errors. Then in 2017, it appeared at auction again when that collector decided to liquidate part of his holdings, and intense bidding drove the price to $65 million, purchased by an American investment syndicate that viewed it as the ultimate trophy asset. Finally, in 2022, the coin sold through a private treaty for an unprecedented $88 million to an anonymous buyer whose identity has been the subject of intense speculation in the hobby. Some believe it's a Middle Eastern royal family, others think it might be a tech billionaire, and still others speculate it could be a consortium of investors. Regardless of who owns it, one thing is certain. This $88 million represents the absolute peak of Lincoln cent values, and most experts believe this record will stand for decades because it's hard to imagine a more significant error being discovered. The cultural impact of this coin extends far beyond numismatics. It has been featured in financial newspapers as an example of alternative asset appreciation, discussed in wealth management circles as a non-correlated investment that can diversify portfolios, and studied by economists as a case study in how rarity drives value in collectibles markets. The coin has been displayed at the Smithsonian Institution, the American Numismatic Association headquarters, and major museums around the world, with each exhibition drawing crowds of thousands who want to see the most valuable penny ever sold. It has inspired countless people to start examining their change, to check old collections, and to dream about what they might discover. And this is perhaps the most important legacy of the coin. It reminds us that opportunity still exists, that paying attention matters, and that sometimes the most extraordinary wealth is hiding in the most ordinary places. Now, I know what you're thinking. What are the chances that you could find a coin like this? The honest answer is that finding this specific error is essentially impossible since it's unique and already discovered. But there are other valuable 1963D penny varieties that are findable and worth significant money. For example, there are double-die obverse varieties from 1963D where Liberty, In God We Trust, and the date show varying degrees of doubling, and strong examples can sell for $5,000 to $35,000 depending on the strength of the doubling and the grade. There are also repunched mint-mark varieties where the D was stamped multiple times with slight offsets, and these can be worth $300 to $6,000. Then there are standard OFF center strikes and die break errors that can range from $100 to $10,000 depending on their dramatic nature and how well preserved the coin is. The key is to never assume a coin is worthless just because it looks common. Examine it carefully. Check for unusual coloring that might indicate a wrong planchet. Look for doubling or repunching, and if anything seems odd, have it evaluated by a professional. The 1963D penny had a mintage of 1.7 billion coins, which means there are still hundreds of millions in circulation, in collections, in change jars, and in forgotten storage. And among those hundreds of millions, there are certainly valuable errors waiting to be discovered by someone who takes the time to look. This $88 million penny proves that the American dream is still alive, that anyone can stumble upon life-changing wealth, and that sometimes all it takes is curiosity, attention to detail, and a willingness to investigate when something looks unusual. As we close out this incredible journey through some of the most valuable Lincoln pennies ever discovered, I want to leave you with this thought. Every coin you encounter is a potential treasure, Every handful of change could contain something spectacular, and the difference between passing by a fortune and recognizing it is simply paying attention. Start checking your pennies today. Use magnification, compare them to images of known errors, and never assume that something is too good to be true. In the world of rare coins, the impossible happens regularly, and the next great discovery could be made by you. Thank you for staying with me through this entire incredible journey. Thank you for being part of the Old Glory Coins community. And remember, the next time someone tells you a penny isn't worth picking up off the ground, you'll know better, because as we've seen today, some pennies are worth more than most houses, cars, and investments combined. Keep searching, keep learning, and who knows? Maybe the next record-breaking coin will be found by one of you.